The Gulf wind carried salt and the smell of dying things. Maya Torres stood on the weathered dock at Port Aransas, Texas, her 7-year-old daughter Lily pressed against her side, both of them staring at the rust-colored monstrosity rising from the water 200 yards offshore. The decommissioned oil platform looked like a skeleton, its steel bones corroded by decades of salt spray and neglect, listing 15 degrees to starboard, as if the ocean had already decided to claim it, but hadn't quite finished the job. The auctioneer's voice crackled through a megaphone that had seen better days, his enthusiasm forced and hollow. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're moving to Lot 17. The Marisol Platform, decommissioned in 2003. Structural survey indicates catastrophic hull damage, complete engine failure, and approximately 40% of the platform submerged below the waterline. Starting bid is $1,000. Silence. Seagulls screamed overhead, mocking the very concept of anyone spending money on this particular piece of maritime wreckage. Maya counted 17 people scattered across the dock, most of them locals who'd come for entertainment rather than investment, waiting to see who would be foolish enough to bid on a structure that would cost more to demolish than it was worth. The auctioneer tried again, his voice dropping. "All right, folks, let's be realistic here. $500. Someone give me 500. More silence. A man in the back laughed, the sound carrying across the water with cruel clarity. Maya's hands tightened on the folder containing every dollar she had left in the world. $650. 3 months of child support that Michael's parents had finally sent after 2 years of legal threats. The last remnant of a marriage that had ended when her husband died in a construction accident, leaving her with medical debt, funeral expenses, and a daughter who asked every night when Daddy was coming home. 300, the auctioneer said, desperation creeping in. Someone give me $300 and we can all go home. Maya's engineering degree felt like dead weight in her mind. She'd graduated top of her class at Texas A&M, specializing in offshore petroleum structures, spending 5 years designing platforms for companies that paid 6-figure salaries and treated their employees like interchangeable parts in a machine designed to extract profit from geology. She'd been good at it, more brilliant even, until the panic attacks started, until she couldn't look at structural blueprints without seeing Michael's body crushed beneath the beam that shouldn't have fallen, until the company doctor suggested she take extended leave and never quite invited her back. The platform listing in the water wasn't much different from the ones she'd designed. Same basic architecture, same weight distribution patterns, same critical failure points. The structural survey called it catastrophic, but Maya's trained eye saw something else. The list wasn't random. It was precise, controlled, deliberate. Platforms didn't sink evenly unless their ballast tanks failed symmetrically, which almost never happened naturally. This one had gone down on purpose, or at least under circumstances that suggested human intervention rather than simple decay. 200, the auctioneer said, his voice flat now, ready to accept defeat and move to the next lot. Lily tugged on Maya's sleeve, her whisper carrying the kind of brutal honesty only children possessed. "Mama, why are we looking at the broken boat? It's scary and ugly." Maya knelt down, meeting her daughter's brown eyes, Michael's eyes, the only piece of him that stayed when everything else was taken away. Because sometimes, broken things are worth more than people think. You just have to know how to look at them properly. Can we fix it? Maybe. I don't know yet. The auctioneer had opened his mouth to declare the lot unsold when Maya raised her hand, her voice carrying across the water with more confidence than she felt. $650. Every head turned. The man who'd laughed earlier, David Chen, and she'd learned his name from the registration table, stopped mid-conversation with his companion and stared at her like she'd just volunteered for a lobotomy. The auctioneer blinked twice, apparently uncertain whether he'd heard correctly. "Did you say $650, ma'am?" $650. That's my bid." A woman Maya recognized from the Port Aransas Chamber of Commerce meeting she'd attended 2 weeks ago stepped forward, her voice carrying the particular tone people used when they wanted to sound helpful, while actually being condescending. "Honey, I don't think you understand what you're bidding on. That platform is worthless. It'll cost you hundreds of thousands just to have it demolished, and the environmental cleanup alone." "I understand structural engineering," Maya interrupted, keeping her voice level. "So I understand offshore petroleum architecture. And I understand that $650 is every dollar I have left in this world, which means I'd better be right about what I'm seeing." The auctioneer recovered his professional demeanor. $650 going once, going twice. Any other bids?" He paused, scanning the crowd that had suddenly found deep fascination with their shoes and smartphones. "Sold to bidder, 73, for $650. "Ma'am, please see the registration table to complete your purchase." The paperwork took 20 minutes. Maya signed forms declaring she understood the platform was sold as is, that she assumed all liability for environmental contamination, that she acknowledged the structure was hazardous and entering it could result in injury or death, or that she waived any right to sue the county for defects or misrepresentation. Lily sat beside her, coloring on the backs of discarded auction flyers, humming the song they'd made up together about butterflies and summer days and Daddy watching from somewhere nice. When the clerk handed Maya the title certificate, an absurd piece of paper declaring her the owner of several hundred tons of rusted steel and broken dreams, she felt the weight of her decision settle into her bones. $650. Gone. Nothing left for groceries or gas or the overdue electric bill sitting on the kitchen counter of the studio apartment they'd been living in since the eviction. The walk back to their truck, a 1998 Ford Ranger that burned oil and made concerning noises when accelerating above 50, took them past David Chen and his companion, a woman in expensive sunglasses and a blazer that probably cost more than Maya's entire wardrobe. They didn't try to hide their conversation as Maya passed. "Can you believe someone actually bought that death trap? The Marisol's been sitting there for 20 years. Every structural engineer in the state has looked at it and walked away." The woman laughed, the sound like wind chimes made of money. "I heard she used to work offshore before she had her breakdown. Probably thinks she can salvage something, sell it for scrap. Someone should tell her that scrap yards won't even touch the Marisol. Too contaminated, too dangerous. She just bought a lawsuit waiting to happen." Maya kept walking, Lily's small hand tight in hers, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. But inside, a doubt crept in with the cold efficiency of rising water. Had she just made the biggest mistake of her life? Used their last dollar on a structure that every expert said was worthless? At the truck, Lily climbed into the passenger seat, buckling herself in with the careful precision she'd learned from months of helping Mama, because Mama's hands sometimes shook too badly to work the buckles properly. Maya sat behind the wheel, not starting the engine yet, just staring through the cracked windshield at the platform listing in the distance. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother, the 5th one this week. "Maya, please be reasonable. You can't keep living like this. Lily needs stability. Come home. We'll help you get on your feet." Home meant San Antonio, meant moving back into her childhood bedroom, and meant admitting defeat and accepting help that came wrapped in judgment and lectures about responsibility and poor choices. It meant her mother watching Lily while Maya worked whatever minimum wage job would hire someone with a 3-year gap on their resume and a reputation for instability. She deleted the message without responding and started the truck. It turned over on the 3rd try, the engine coughing blue smoke that made the environmental activists protesting offshore drilling 2 blocks away glare in their direction. "Where are we going, Mama?" "To see our new investment, baby. We're going to need a boat." The Coast Guard station at Port Aransas rented small vessels for maritime inspection purposes, which was technically what Maya needed, even if inspection was a generous term for what she planned. The clerk, a weathered man in his 60s, with skin like tanned leather, looked at her title certificate and raised one eyebrow. "You bought the Marisol. You know that thing's been condemned since 2008? Environmental Protection Agency has it flagged for hazardous materials. You can't go inside without proper equipment. I'm just doing an exterior survey. I need to see what I bought." The man studied her for a long moment, then shrugged with the fatalism of someone who'd seen countless people make terrible decisions and had stopped trying to save them. $100 for 4 hours. You bring it back damaged. You buy it. Maya handed over most of what remained from Michael's parents' money. Lily watched this transaction with the solemn awareness of a child who'd learned that money was a finite resource that disappeared too quickly. The rental boat was a 14-foot aluminum skiff with a temperamental outboard motor and life jackets that smelled of mildew and old fear. Maya got Lily settled in the bow, the oversized life jacket making her look even smaller than 7 years old had any right to look. The journey to the platform took 20 minutes, fighting against choppy water that suggested a storm building somewhere in the Gulf. Up close, the Marisol looked even worse than it had from shore. Rust covered every visible surface in patterns that Maya's engineer's eye recognized as structural degradation markers, places where salt water had penetrated protective coatings and begun the slow work of turning steel back into iron oxide. The platform had 4 main support columns, each approximately 3 meters in diameter, unrising from the water to a deck that sat partially submerged on one side. 2 of the columns showed significant buckling at the waterline, the classic signature of intentional scuttling rather than natural failure. Someone had wanted this platform to sink, but had done it carefully, methodically, in a way that kept it from going down completely. Maya circled the structure slowly, her hand steady on the outboard tiller, her mind cataloging details that the structural survey had missed or chosen not to mention. The deck hatches were sealed with marine-grade locks that looked newer than the rest of the platform. The railings showed signs of recent repair, welds that hadn't yet developed the rust patina that covered everything else. And most telling, the stability. Despite listing 15 degrees, the platform wasn't moving. The morning wind pushed waves against its columns with rhythmic force, but the structure didn't shift, didn't creak, didn't show any of the dynamic movement that would indicate pending collapse. It was stable, deliberately positioned, held in place by something beneath the waterline that the structural survey hadn't been able to examine. Lily pointed to a ladder running up one of the forward columns, the rungs partially submerged, but still intact. "Can we go up there, Mama?" "Not today, baby. We need proper equipment first. But soon." "Why did you buy the broken boat if we can't even go inside?" Maya cut the engine, letting them drift while she studied the deck structure above. How to explain intuition to a 7-year-old? How to explain that sometimes you recognized patterns in chaos, saw order in apparent destruction, and understood that human beings rarely did anything without reason, and this platform had been sunk deliberately by someone who wanted it to look like an accident while keeping it accessible. Because I think the broken boat isn't as broken as everyone thinks, and because sometimes taking a risk is the only choice that leads anywhere except down. They stayed for 2 hours, circling, observing, photographing with Maya's phone. She documented the weld repairs, the lock systems, the stress patterns in the visible steel. Lily eventually fell asleep in the bow, exhausted by a morning that had started before dawn and included watching her mother gamble away their last money on something everyone said was worthless. The return trip to the Coast Guard station happened in silence, Maya's mind already working through logistics. She needed diving equipment to examine the submerged sections. She needed cutting tools to access sealed hatches. She needed marine survey equipment to map the underwater portions, all of which required money she didn't have and skills she'd spent 3 years trying to forget. At the dock, as she helped Lily back onto solid ground, David Chen appeared from the harbormaster's office, his expression carrying the particular smugness of someone who'd been proven right. "How was your inspection? Find anything valuable in that scrap heap?" Maya bit back the response she wanted to give and settled for truth, delivered without emotion. "Found enough to know I made the right investment. Thanks for your concern." Investment. He tasted the word like it was poison. "Lady, I've been in marine salvage for 20 years. That platform is a liability, not an investment. You just spent your last dollar on a structure that's going to collapse into the Gulf within 2 years. And when it does, you're going to be personally liable for the environmental cleanup. We're talking millions in potential fines. Then I guess I'd better figure out what's down there before that happens." Chen shook his head, turning away. "Your funeral. Just don't expect the community to bail you out when reality hits." That night, in their studio apartment that smelled of old carpet and the mildew they couldn't quite eliminate no matter how much vinegar spray Maya used, Lily asked the question that had been building all day. "Mama, why does everyone think we're stupid?" Maya looked up from the laptop where she'd been studying maritime salvage regulations. Trying to figure out legal pathways to access a structure everyone wanted to pretend didn't exist. Her daughter sat on the floor, surrounded by drawings of the platform she'd been creating all evening, childish renderings that somehow captured the structure's essential loneliness. "They don't think we're stupid, baby. They think we're desperate, which we are. But desperate isn't the same as wrong." "What's the difference?" Maya saved her document and closed the laptop, giving Lily her full attention. "Desperate means you don't have good options, so you take risks other people won't take. Wrong means you make decisions that hurt people or break things that shouldn't be broken. We're desperate, but we're not wrong. Not yet. What if the boat is really just broken and there's nothing good inside? Then we'll have learned an expensive lesson about trusting my instincts. But Lily, I need you to understand something. Your daddy died because someone made a mistake, because they didn't pay attention to structural calculations, because they cut corners and assumed everything would be fine. I've spent 3 years being afraid of making mistakes, being afraid of trusting my training, being afraid that if I make one wrong choice, something terrible will happen." Maya's voice cracked slightly. She pulled Lily close. "But being afraid is its own kind of mistake. It's the mistake of never trying, never risking, never believing that broken things might hide treasure. So yeah, maybe I'm wrong about the platform. Maybe I just wasted $650. But at least I tried." Lily processed this with the seriousness children bring to understanding their parents' fears. "If there is treasure in the broken boat, can we get a house? A real one? If there's treasure, baby, we can get anything you want. I want a house where the bathroom door closes all the way, and a yard for a dog, and maybe one of those pools that's just for our family." The simplicity of the request, bathroom privacy, a pet, a swimming pool, hit Maya harder than grand dreams would have. Lily wasn't asking for mansions or vacations or private schools. She was asking for the basic markers of middle-class stability that most children took for granted. "Deal. If we find treasure, you get all of that." They fell asleep together on the twin mattress that served as furniture, Lily's drawings of the platform scattered around them like maps to a future that was either a dream or delusion depending on who was judging. At 3 a.m, Maya's phone rang. She answered without looking at the caller ID, her voice rough with interrupted sleep. "Hello? Miss Torres? This is Officer Raymond Guzman with Port Aransas Police. We've had a report of unauthorized activity at your platform. Someone's been out there with floodlights, appears to be trying to access the structure. We need you to come down and verify whether you've hired contractors." Maya sat up, fully awake now. "I haven't hired anyone. I just bought it this afternoon." "Then we've got trespassers. Can you meet us at the marina in 20 minutes? She looked at Lily, still sleeping. One small hand clutched around Mr. Whiskers, on the stuffed cat that had been her constant companion since Michael's death. Taking her daughter to a potential confrontation at 3 in the morning was bad parenting. Leaving her alone was worse. "I'll be there in 25. I need to bring my daughter." Officer Guzman and his partner, a younger woman whose name tag read Martinez, waited at the dock with a police boat and expressions that suggested this wasn't their idea of productive law enforcement. Maya arrived with Lily barely awake, wrapped in a blanket, Mr. Whiskers clutched tight. "Appreciate you coming down, Mrs. Torres. Harbor Patrol spotted lights at your platform about an hour ago. By the time they could respond, whoever it was had taken off. But they left equipment behind. We need you to identify whether it's yours." The ride out to the platform happened in tense silence. Lily dozing against Maya's shoulder, the police boat's searchlight cutting through darkness that felt more oppressive than protective. When they reached the Marisol, Officer Guzman swung the light across the deck. Someone had been there, all right. A portable floodlight system stood rigged to one of the support columns, connected to a generator that was still running. Climbing equipment hung from the deck railing. Professional grade, expensive. The kind of gear that suggested whoever had been here knew what they were doing and had resources Maya couldn't match. But what made Maya's blood go cold was the cutting torch, still warm, positioned next to one of the sealed deck hatches. Someone had started cutting through the locks. They'd gotten about halfway through one when apparently the police boat's approach scared them off. An Officer Martinez climbed up to the deck with practiced efficiency, documenting the scene with her phone's camera. "This is interesting. Your platform's been sealed by EPA order since 2008. Someone cutting those locks without proper authorization is committing a federal crime." Maya processed this information, her engineer's mind working through implications. Why would someone risk federal charges to access a worthless structure? That's the question, isn't it? Guzman looked at Maya with new interest. "You bought this thing for $650 this afternoon. By midnight, someone's trying to break into it. Either you've got extremely bad timing, or there's something down there worth the risk." "I thought it was just abandoned equipment. The structural survey said complete loss." "Structural surveys don't always tell the whole story." Martinez returned from the deck, her expression thoughtful. "Ms. Torres, do you have any idea what this platform was used for before decommissioning?" "Oil drilling, presumably. That's what all the platforms out here were built for." "Most of them, yeah. But the Marisol had a different history. It was a research station for the last 5 years before shutdown. Environmental monitoring, they said. But there were always rumors." Officer Guzman shot his partner a look that suggested she was sharing more than department policy recommended. Martinez shrugged. "She owns it now. She's got a right to know what she bought. The Marisol was owned by Coastal Resources International before they went bankrupt in 2003. There were allegations, never proven, that they'd been using the platform for activities beyond environmental research. When the bankruptcy proceedings started, a lot of their records disappeared. The platform got seized as an asset, but by then, it was already starting to sink. Allegations of what? Money laundering, primarily. The theory was that CRI was moving cash offshore, literally, using remote platforms to store and transfer funds outside the banking system. But the investigation died when the company dissolved. Most people assumed whatever might have been here had been removed before the bankruptcy. Maya stared at the sealed hatches, at the fresh cut marks from tonight's attempted break-in. Most people assumed wrong. Maybe. Or maybe you just bought into someone else's delusion. Either way, we need to file a report. Harbor Patrol will increase patrols around the structure, but Ms. Torres, if someone's this interested in accessing your property, you need to consider whether it's safe for you to be out here alone. They motored back to the marina as dawn started breaking across the Gulf, painting the water in shades of pink and gold that made everything look deceptively peaceful. Lily woke up as they reached the dock, her sleepy voice cutting through Maya's spiraling thoughts. Mama, why were people trying to steal our boat? How to explain greed and desperation, and the possibility that their $650 purchase might actually contain something worth stealing? Maya settled for simplicity. Because they think there might be something valuable inside. I mean, they want to get it before we do. Are we going to let them? Maya looked at her daughter, 7 years old, clutching a stuffed cat, wrapped in a blanket that had seen better days, asking whether they were going to surrender to people with more resources and fewer scruples. The question deserved an honest answer. No, baby. We're not going to let them. Officer Guzman helped them onto the dock, his expression somewhere between sympathy and resignation. Ms. Torres, I'll be straight with you. Harbor Patrol can watch the platform, but we can't be there constantly. If someone's determined to access it, they'll find a way. Your best bet might be to sell whatever salvage rights you have and walk away before this gets complicated. How much would salvage rights on a condemned platform sell for? To the right buyer? Maybe $10,000 if you're lucky. Not life-changing money, but better than the $650 you spent. $10,000. Enough to cover 3 months' rent, pay down some debt, buy Lily new shoes that weren't from Goodwill. Enough to be tempting, to whisper that maybe discretion was the better part of valor, that maybe walking away with a small profit was smarter than gambling on a platform that might contain nothing but rust and broken dreams. Maya looked back at the Marisol, silhouetted against the rising sun, listing in water that had already claimed 40% of its structure. Someone had tried to break in tonight. Someone thought there was enough value down there to risk federal charges. Someone knew something Maya didn't. Or maybe someone was as desperate and delusional as she was, chasing rumors and hope because the alternative was accepting that nothing ever got better, that broken things stayed broken, that people like Maya Torres would always be one bad decision away from losing everything. Thank you, officer. I'll think about it. She wouldn't think about it. She'd already decided. The platform held something, money, equipment, information, that someone wanted badly enough to commit crimes to access, which meant Maya's intuition about the deliberate sinking, about the structural stability, about patterns in apparent chaos had been right, which meant she'd just bought something worth infinitely more than $650. She just had to figure out what it was before someone else took it away. The walk back to the truck happened in silence, Lily holding tight to Maya's hand, both of them processing a night that had transformed a questionable investment into something resembling treasure hunt, complete with midnight intruders and police escorts, and the dawning realization that sometimes desperation led to discovery. At the truck, as Maya buckled Lily into the passenger seat, her daughter asked one more question. Mama, are we treasure hunters now? Maya paused, her hand on the door, looking at the platform visible in the distance. The sun had fully risen now, burning away the romantic dawn colors and leaving harsh daylight that showed every flaw, every structural problem, every reason to walk away. Yeah, baby, I guess we are. She started the engine on the second try, the blue smoke less offensive now that they'd added treasure hunters to their list of identities. The drive back to the studio apartment took them past the Chamber of Commerce office, where a new sign hung in the window. Port Aransas, Maritime Heritage Foundation, supporting local history. Maya filed that away for later investigation. Heritage foundations sometimes had archives, records, information about platforms and companies, and activities that might have happened before bankruptcy and scandal erased official documentation. At the apartment, while Lily showered and got ready for school, Maya opened her laptop and started searching. Coastal Resources International. The company name yielded surprisingly little, given that they'd operated a major offshore facility. A handful of news articles about the bankruptcy, some environmental group protests about drilling practices. Nothing about money laundering or hidden cash, or any explanation for why a research platform would need the kind of security locks Maya had seen on those deck hatches. But buried in a maritime industry forum, she found a thread from 2004 titled, "Whatever Happened to CRI's Gold Reserves?" The original post read, "Anyone know what happened to the physical assets CRI was holding offshore? Heard rumors they'd moved significant bullion to remote locations during the investigation. Federal audit never accounted for everything they should have had in their treasury. Figure it got dispersed through bankruptcy proceedings, but seems like a loose end." The responses ranged from skeptical to conspiratorial, but one reply made Maya's hand stop moving on the keyboard. "I worked platform maintenance for CRI in 2002. We had a joke about the Marisol, that it was sinking from the weight of what they stored in the auxiliary hold. Management told us it was research equipment, but research equipment doesn't require armed guards and triple lock access protocols. Make of that what you will." Maya screenshotted the thread, saved it to a folder she was rapidly building, and kept searching. By the time she needed to walk Lily to the bus stop, she'd compiled enough information to paint a picture. Coastal Resources International had been a mid-sized energy company specializing in offshore operations. In the late 1990s, they'd diversified into what they called secure asset storage, renting platform space to clients who needed remote, difficult-to-access locations for valuable materials. The environmental monitoring was real, but secondary. The primary business was providing offshore vaults for people and companies who wanted their assets away from traditional banking systems. When federal investigators started looking into CRI's finances in 2002, the company had scrambled to move or hide physical assets. But the investigation moved faster than expected. By the time bankruptcy was declared in 2003, several of their platforms had been raided, but not the Marisol, which had begun its deliberate sinking just before federal agents could reach it. The platform hadn't collapsed from neglect. It had been scuttled to hide evidence. And in the chaos of bankruptcy and environmental cleanup and legal proceedings that stretched for years, everyone had apparently assumed whatever had been stored there was either recovered quietly or lost to the Gulf. Well, everyone except whoever had tried to break in last night. Maya walked Lily to the bus stop, her mind spinning scenarios and calculations. If CRI had stored gold bullion for clients, and if that gold had never been recovered, then the Marisol might contain genuine treasure. Not metaphorical value or salvageable equipment, or anything requiring complex explanation. Actual physical wealth hidden beneath 40% submersion and 20 years of rust. The other mothers at the bus stop gave Maya the looks she'd grown accustomed to, the quick assessments that cataloged her thrift store clothes, her unwashed hair, the dark circles under her eyes that never quite faded. No one spoke to her directly, but she heard whispers after Lily boarded the bus. That's the woman who bought the death trap platform. $600 for a lawsuit waiting to happen. She used to be an engineer, had some kind of breakdown. Husband died. It's sad, really. Sad. That's what she'd become to them. Not concerning, not worthy of help, just sad. The kind of cautionary tale mothers tell each other about what happens when you make too many wrong choices and don't have family money to cushion the fall. Maya walked back to the apartment, made instant coffee with water heated in the microwave because the stove's gas had been shut off for non-payment, and sat down to make a plan. She needed diving equipment. She needed cutting tools. She needed someone with maritime salvage experience who wouldn't ask too many questions about what she was really doing. Most of all, she needed to get inside that platform before whoever had tried last night came back with better equipment and fewer reservations about working in daylight. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Maya almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe accept. Ms. Torres? My name is Franklin Pierce. I'm an attorney with Pierce, Henderson, and Shaw here in Corpus Christi. I represent interests related to the Marisol Platform that you purchased yesterday. My clients would like to make you an offer. Maya's hand tightened on the phone. What kind of offer? A purchase offer. $50,000 for the platform and all attached salvage rights. Cash transaction. Closing can happen within 48 hours. My clients understand you bought the property at auction, and they're prepared to give you significant profit for a minimal holding period. $50,000. Maya's mouth went dry. That was real money. That was a year's rent paid in advance, a reliable car, breathing room, stability. That was everything she'd been trying to build since Michael died, and the world fell apart. Why do your clients want a condemned platform worth $650? They're interested in the structure for private recreational development. Some buyers like the idea of owning an offshore property for diving or fishing operations. It's niche, but my clients have the resources to pursue niche interests. Maya's engineering degree hadn't just taught her structural calculations. It had taught her to recognize when someone was lying. Pierce's explanation was plausible enough to be believable, but wrong enough to be obvious. No one paid $50,000 for diving rights to a structure that was collapsing and would need millions in repairs to be safe for recreational use. I need to think about it. Ms. Torres, I'll be direct with you. My clients are prepared to go higher if necessary, but they're also prepared to pursue alternative approaches if you're not interested in selling. You bought the property legally, but there are environmental regulations, safety concerns, liability issues. It would be unfortunate if you found yourself facing legal challenges that made ownership untenable. The threat was delicate enough to have deniability, but clear enough to understand. Sell or face legal warfare from people with resources Maya couldn't match. Mr. Pierce, tell your clients I'll consider their offer. I need 48 hours. 24 hours would be preferable. Then your clients will have to prefer disappointment. 48 hours, or I'm not considering anything. She hung up before Pierce could respond, her heart racing. $50,000, offered by people who were also threatening legal action if she refused, which meant they knew or strongly suspected what was down there, which meant Maya's desperate gamble might actually pay off if she could get to the treasure before they found a way to take it from her. The rest of the day passed in frantic preparation. Maya visited 3 marine supply stores, comparing prices for diving equipment she couldn't afford. She called the one friend from her engineering days who might still talk to her, Jennifer Martinez, who'd worked at the same company and had been kind when Maya fell apart. Maya, God, it's been 3 years. How are you? I need help, Jen. I know that's probably all I ever say anymore, but this is different. I think I found something. Something big. Jennifer listened while Maya explained the platform, the midnight break-in, the attorney's call. When Maya finished, there was a long silence before Jennifer spoke. You always did see patterns no one else noticed. Remember that stability analysis you did on the Titan platform? Everyone said your calculations were wrong, that the structure was fine. 3 months later, it collapsed during routine maintenance, killed 2 people. I remember. You were right then. Maybe you're right now. What do you need? Diving equipment, or someone who has it and knows how to use it. I can do structural analysis, but I can't dive, not safely. I know someone, former Navy, does salvage work sometimes. Owen Reeves. He's good, and he's discreet. I'll send you his number. But Maya? Be careful. If someone's offering you $50,000 to walk away, They're expecting to find something worth a lot more than that down there. I know. That's why I can't walk away." After Jennifer hung up, Maya sat with her phone, staring at the contact information that came through via text. Owen Reeves, former Navy, salvage operations specialist, available for discreet marine survey work. She called the number before she could second-guess herself. A man's voice answered, rough but professional. "Reeves. Mr. Reeves, my name is Maya Torres. Jennifer Martinez gave me your number. I need someone to help me survey an offshore platform. It's complicated and probably dangerous, and I can't afford whatever your normal rate is. But if what I think is down there actually exists, I can pay you a percentage of recovery." "What kind of percentage?" 20% of whatever we find." Owen was quiet for a moment. "Jennifer wouldn't have given you my number unless she thought you were legitimate. When do you want to start?" "Tomorrow morning, before whoever tried to break in last night comes back." "Send me the coordinates. I'll meet you at the marina at 6 a.m. Bring whatever documentation you have about the platform's structure." "And Ms. Torres? If this goes wrong, if we find nothing, or if whatever we find is claimed by someone with better lawyers, I don't want to hear complaints about wasted time. If we find nothing, you can have first claim on my profound apologies. Or if we find what I think we will, 20% is going to make us both very happy." She hung up and immediately started planning. Lily would need to stay with someone. Maya pulled out her phone and reluctantly called her mother for the first time in 6 months. "Maya, is everything all right? Is Lily okay?" "Lily's fine. Mom, I need a favor. I need you to watch her for a day, maybe 2. I've got something I need to do and I can't bring her." Her mother's sigh carried 3 years of accumulated disappointment and worry. "Maya, what are you doing? Are you taking care of yourself? Taking your medication?" "I'm fine. I just need someone to watch Lily. Can you drive down here tomorrow, or should I bring her to San Antonio?" "I'll come to you. But Maya, we need to talk. About your future. About Lily's future. This can't continue. Living in a studio apartment, barely scraping by. You need stability." "I know, Mom. And that's what I'm working on. Just trust me for 48 more hours." After ending the call, Maya spent the rest of the day organizing every piece of information she had about the Marisol: platform specifications, ownership history, the bankruptcy proceedings, the environmental reports, the midnight break-in police report, the forum posts about gold reserves. She created a timeline, mapped connections, built the case that any good engineer would build before attempting something dangerous. When Lily came home from school, Maya had already cleaned the apartment, packed a bag for her daughter, and prepared dinner. Macaroni and cheese from a box, the closest thing to celebration they could afford. "We having a party?" Lily asked, and seeing the carefully set table. "Sort of. Grandma's coming tomorrow to stay with you for a day or 2 while I do some work on the platform. Can I come help? I'm good at finding things." Maya knelt down, taking Lily's hands. "Not this time, baby. But I promise, when we're finished, when we know what we found, you'll be the first person I tell. And if it's what I think it is, your whole life is about to change. For good, for better, for the absolute best." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in the dark, listening to Lily breathe, thinking about Michael, about the choices that had led them here, about the platform, listing in the Gulf, holding secrets that might transform desperation into triumph, or might reveal itself as nothing but rust and wasted hope. At 4 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and started preparing, so her mother would arrive by 7 to watch Lily. Owen Reeves would meet her at the marina at 6, which meant she had time to drive to the platform once more before sunrise, to look at it with fresh eyes, to make sure she wasn't imagining patterns and randomness. The drive to the marina happened through streets still dark, the only illumination coming from streetlights that turned everything orange and alien. Maya parked at the overlook, where she could see the platform silhouetted against the pre-dawn sky. It was still there, still listing, still looking like something that should be demolished rather than explored. But now Maya saw it differently, not as a broken structure, but as a vault. Not as worthless scrap, but as the hiding place someone had created 20 years ago, assuming the Gulf would claim it completely, assuming no one would ever look, assuming the treasure would stay buried until memory and bankruptcy and time erased any evidence it had existed. They'd assumed wrong. Maya Torres had bought a $650 platform with her last dollar. She'd been mocked, threatened, offered bribes to walk away. But she'd spent too long being afraid, being broken, accepting that her life would always be defined by loss and struggle, and barely hanging on. The Marisol held something worth finding, and Maya intended to find it, claim it, and use it to build the life her daughter deserved. A life with bathroom doors that closed properly, a yard for a dog, and a pool just for their family. Simple dreams, reasonable dreams. Dreams that had been impossible 48 hours ago. The sun started rising, painting the platform in shades of gold that made it look almost beautiful, almost worth believing in. Maya took one last look, then turned the truck around and drove back to the apartment. Tomorrow, they'd dive. Tomorrow, they'd open sealed hatches and explore underwater holds and find out whether intuition and engineering analysis and desperate hope were enough to turn rust into gold. Tomorrow, everything would change, one way or another. The only question was whether it would change for better or worse. And Maya Torres, former engineer, current single mother, brand new owner of a condemned offshore platform, was about to find out which. Her mother arrived at 7:15, driving the same Buick sedan she'd owned since Maya was in high school, on its trunk loaded with enough groceries to suggest she planned an intervention rather than a babysitting visit. Gloria Torres emerged from the car wearing the expression Maya knew too well. Love wrapped in judgment, concern packaged with criticism. "Maya, you look exhausted. When's the last time you slept properly?" "Good morning to you too, Mom. Thanks for coming." Gloria pulled Lily into a hug, the kind of embrace that grandmothers give when they suspect they're not seeing their grandchildren often enough. "Lily, sweetie, we're going to have such a good day. I brought ingredients for your favorite cookies." Lily lit up in a way that made Maya's chest ache. Simple pleasures, baking cookies with Grandma, that Maya couldn't provide because their apartment kitchen barely functioned, and ingredients cost money they didn't have. "Mom, I need to go. I'm meeting someone at 6, and I'm already late." Gloria followed Maya to the truck, her voice dropping to the register she used for serious conversations. "What are you really doing? Jennifer called me yesterday. Said you're planning to dive on some abandoned platform, that you're chasing rumors about treasure. Jennifer had no right. Jennifer's worried. I'm worried. Maya, you bought a condemned structure with your last dollar. Now you're talking about diving in the Gulf with some stranger, looking for something that probably doesn't exist. This isn't rational behavior." Maya's hands tightened on the truck door. 3 years of this. 3 years of everyone, doctors, therapists, family, former colleagues, telling her that her thoughts weren't rational, that her decisions weren't sound, that she needed medication and supervision, and to accept limitations on what she could accomplish. "Mom, I was one of the best structural engineers in Texas before Michael died. I know how to read platform architecture. I know when something's been deliberately modified. The Marisol was scuttled to hide something, and I'm going to find out what. And if you're wrong, if there's nothing down there but rust and oil residue, what then? Then I've wasted a day and $50,000 I don't have. But I won't spend the rest of my life wondering if I was too scared to find out." Gloria's expression softened slightly. "You sound like your father. He was always chasing the next big opportunity, convinced the next investment would be the one that paid off." Dad lost everything gambling on real estate schemes he didn't understand. "I'm not gambling. I'm following engineering analysis and evidence." That's what he said too. The comparison landed like a slap. Maya's father had died, broke and bitter, having dragged the family through bankruptcy and foreclosure, chasing dreams that never materialized. Gloria had rebuilt their lives through decades of careful budgeting and risk aversion, teaching Maya that stability mattered more than opportunity. But stability hadn't saved Maya when the panic attack started. Caution hadn't prevented Michael's death. Playing it safe had led to this: a studio apartment, an overdrawn bank account, and a daughter who deserved so much more than barely surviving. "I have to go, Mom. Lily's lunch is packed. Her inhaler is in the bathroom cabinet." "I know where her inhaler is. I'm her grandmother." Maya kissed Lily goodbye. "I promised to be careful," and drove to the marina with her mother's warnings echoing in her mind. What if she was wrong? What if this was just another manifestation of the instability everyone saw when they looked at her? Owen Reeves waited at the dock, a man in his late 40s with the weathered look of someone who'd spent most of his life working on or underwater. His diving equipment sat organized in waterproof cases, professional grade gear that probably cost more than Maya's truck. He looked up as she approached, his assessment quick and thorough. "You're late. Family complications. Are we ready?" "Depends. You bring the structural documentation?" Maya handed him the folder containing platform specs, environmental reports, and her own analysis of the deliberate sinking. Owen studied them for 10 minutes, while Maya resisted the urge to fill the silence with explanations. Finally, he looked up. "You're right about the scuttling. These stress patterns don't match natural collapse. Someone flooded specific compartments in sequence to control the descent. The question is why they stopped halfway. They wanted it accessible but hidden, submerged enough that casual observers would think it's just another wreck, but stable enough to reach with proper equipment. You've done this before? Wreck diving? No. But I've designed offshore structures. I understand how they fail and how they don't. The Marisol shouldn't be stable at 15 degrees list unless something's anchoring it from below." Owen packed the documents back into their waterproof case. "All right. Here's how this works. I dive first. We'll do a preliminary survey, assess structural safety. If I think it's dangerous, we abort regardless of what might be down there. I'm not dying for 20% of maybe treasure." "Agreed. If I find the auxiliary hold you think exists, and if it's accessible, I'll signal you, and we'll discuss next steps. But Ms. Torres, you need to understand, even if there is gold down there, recovery is complex. We can't just swim up with bullion bars. We need equipment, documentation, legal right to salvage. This isn't a one-day operation." "I know, but if we confirm it exists, I can figure out the rest. I just need proof that I'm not chasing delusions." They took Owen's boat, a 26-foot center console that actually looked seaworthy, and made the journey to the Marisol in 15 minutes. The morning sun turned the Gulf into a sheet of hammered copper, beautiful in a way that felt like false advertising for the dangers beneath the surface. Up close, the platform looked even more imposing than Maya remembered. Owen circled it twice, his practiced eye cataloging details she'd missed. He pointed to the submerged sections where the deck had gone underwater. The auxiliary hold, if it exists, would be below the main deck, probably accessed through sealed hatches we can't see from the surface. I'll start with the forward section, work my way around. You stay on the boat. If I'm not back in 40 minutes, call Coast Guard and tell them a diver went missing at these coordinates." That's comforting. It's realistic. We don't know what the interior looks like. Could be structurally unsound, could be full of debris, and could have currents that make navigation dangerous. I'm good, but I'm not invincible. Owen suited up with efficient precision, checking equipment, reviewing hand signals, ensuring Maya understood the emergency protocols. Then he rolled backward off the boat and disappeared beneath the surface in a stream of bubbles. Maya sat in the boat, watching the surface, counting seconds that felt like hours. The water was murky enough that she lost sight of Owen within meters of descent. Nothing to do but wait and try not to imagine every catastrophic scenario: structure collapse, equipment failure, underwater currents, any of the 1,000 ways diving could kill even experienced professionals. At 27 minutes, Owen's head broke the surface. He swam to the boat with powerful strokes, his expression unreadable behind the dive mask. Maya helped him aboard, waiting while he removed his gear before speaking. "Well?" Owen pulled off his mask, his eyes holding something between respect and disbelief. "You were right. There's an auxiliary hold, sealed with triple lock hatches exactly like you described. The locks are corroded but intact. I couldn't access the interior without cutting tools. But Ms. Torres, that hold was built for secure storage. Military-grade construction, reinforced bulkheads, ventilation systems that suggest they wanted to preserve whatever was inside." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. "Can you estimate the size?" "Approximately 4 meters by 6 meters, by 3 meters high. That's 72 cubic meters of storage space. If they filled even half of that with gold bullion at standard bar dimensions." He pulled out a waterproof notepad and did quick calculations. "You're looking at somewhere between 800 and 1,000 bars, depending on packing efficiency. And current gold prices. Last I checked, around 2,000 per troy ounce. Standard gold bar weighs 400 troy ounces. Call it 800,000 per bar." Owen met her eyes. "Ms. Torres, if that hold is full of gold, you're not looking at $50,000. You're looking at somewhere between 600 and 800 million. The number hit Maya like a physical blow. She sat down hard on the boat's bench seat, her engineering mind automatically questioning the calculation, while another part of her brain tried to process what $800 million meant. That can't be right. I ran the numbers 3 times underwater. The hold capacity is definite. I measured it. The rest is estimation, but conservative estimation. Could be more if they stacked efficiently. Could be less if they mixed gold with other assets, or if some was removed before the scuttling. But Miss Torres, there's a reason someone's trying to break in. There's a reason an attorney offered you $50,000. They know what's down there." Maya forced herself to breathe, to think clearly. If we cut those locks, if we confirm there's gold, what happens next legally? That depends on about 15 different factors. You own the platform, which gives you salvage rights to anything inside it. But if the gold was stored by clients of Coastal Resources International, those clients, or their heirs, might have ownership claims. If CRI acquired it illegally, the government might seize it. If it's connected to criminal activity, you're looking at federal investigation. But possession is something. Possession is leverage. If we can document what's there, photograph it, establish your legal right to access it as the platform owner, then you've got negotiating power. But Ms. Torres, cutting those locks is the point of no return. Right now, you've just got a theory. Once we open that hold, everyone will know what's inside, and people with 800 million reasons to take it from you will come after you with everything they have." Maya looked at the platform, at the structure she'd bought for $650, with mockery ringing in her ears. Somewhere beneath that rusted deck, in a sealed hold designed to withstand decades of submersion, sat enough gold to transform not just her life, but generations of her family's lives. Or she was about to cut open a hold full of nothing but seawater and confirm everyone's assessment that she was delusional, desperate, and making decisions that would haunt her for whatever remained of her struggling existence. Can you cut the locks? I've got plasma cutting equipment in my truck, but I need to get it from Corpus Christi, 2-hour round trip. And Miss Torres, I need to be very clear about something. The moment we open that hold, this becomes real. No more theoretical treasure, no more maybe. We're committing to whatever consequences come next. I understand. How much for the cutting equipment and your time? Owen studied her with an expression that suggested he was recalculating his initial assessment. You're serious about this? Even knowing the legal complications, even knowing that powerful people want this badly enough to threaten you. I'm serious because Lily deserves a life where we're not one missed payment from homelessness. I'm serious because I spent 3 years being broken, and I'm tired of it. And I'm serious because every instinct I have that made me a good engineer is telling me there's $800 million of gold down there, and the only way to find out is to cut those locks. 20% still works for you. If there's $800 million down there, 20% is $160 million. That works for both of us. Owen extended his hand. Then we have a deal. I'll get the cutting equipment. We come back at dusk when there's less boat traffic. We document everything with underwater cameras. And we figure out what to do next based on what we find. They shook on it. An absurd formality given the stakes, but somehow necessary. Owen dropped Maya back at the marina with instructions to meet at 6 p.m., bringing any documentation she had about CRI's bankruptcy proceedings and a lawyer's contact information in case they needed immediate legal advice. Maya drove back to the apartment in a daze, her mind spinning through implications. $800 million. The number was too large to comprehend in any meaningful way. What did that even mean in practical terms? How did someone possess that kind of wealth? How did you protect it? How did you keep it? At the apartment, her mother and Lily had transformed the tiny kitchen into a cookie factory. Flour dusted every surface. Lily wore an apron 3 sizes too large, on her face bright with the kind of happiness Maya hadn't seen in months. "Mama, we made chocolate chip and snickerdoodles, and Grandma says we can make peanut butter next." Gloria looked up from the mixing bowl, her expression softening when she saw Maya's face. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." Maya knelt down to Lily's level, pulling her daughter into a hug that had nothing to do with cookies and everything to do with the enormous weight of possibility pressing down on her chest. "No ghosts, baby. But I think we might have found something. Treasure? Maybe. We won't know for sure until tonight." After Lily went back to decorating cookies, Gloria pulled Maya into the apartment's tiny bathroom, the only space that offered even minimal privacy. "Maya, what's really going on? You look terrified." "I think there's gold in that platform, Mom. A lot of gold. Enough to change everything." Gloria's expression cycled through disbelief, hope, and concern in rapid succession. "How much is a lot?" "Potentially hundreds of millions of dollars." Her mother sat down on the closed toilet seat, one hand pressed to her chest. "Oh God. Maya, if that's true, I know all the things that could go wrong. But Mom, what if it's real? What if this one desperate gamble actually pays off? Then you'll have new problems, bigger problems. Money that size attracts attention you're not prepared to handle. I'll hire people to help me handle it. Lawyers, accountants, security, whatever it takes. But first I have to confirm it exists." Gloria stood, taking Maya's hands in hers. "Your father chased opportunities like this his whole life. Most of them broke his heart. But Maya, you're smarter than he was. More careful. If anyone could pull this off, it's you. Just promise me you'll be careful." "I promise." The afternoon passed in strange limbo. Maya researched maritime salvage law, contacted 3 attorneys whose names came up in offshore property cases, and drafted an email to Jennifer explaining what they'd found and asking for recommendations on financial advisors who specialized in sudden wealth management. At 5:30, she kissed Lily goodbye, promised Gloria she'd be back by midnight, and drove to the marina where Owen waited with equipment that looked more suited to a military operation than a diving expedition. Plasma cutters, underwater welding gear, waterproof camera systems, portable lighting rigs. He'd clearly spent the afternoon preparing for every scenario. "You look nervous," Owen observed, as they loaded gear into his boat. "I'm about to find out if I'm crazy or if I just made the best decision of my life. Nervous doesn't begin to cover it." They made the journey to the Marisol in near silence, the setting sun painting the platform in shades of amber and shadow that made it look almost mystical. Owen anchored 20 meters from the structure, checking and rechecking his equipment with the methodical precision of someone who'd survived by never rushing. "Last chance to walk away," he said, his hand on the plasma cutter case. "Once we cut those locks, there's no pretending this didn't happen." Cut the locks. Owen suited up, loaded cutting equipment onto an underwater sled, and reviewed hand signals one more time. Then he was gone, disappearing beneath darkening water, while Maya sat in the boat with a waterproof radio and instructions to call Coast Guard if he didn't surface within 90 minutes. 73 minutes later, the radio crackled to life. Owen's voice came through distorted but unmistakable. "Ms. Torres, you need to see this." "Is it?" "Yes, it's exactly what you thought. Get the secondary dive gear ready. You're coming down." Maya had learned basic diving in college during a coastal engineering course, but that had been 15 years ago, and she'd never dived deeper than 30 feet. Owen surfaced long enough to help her into the spare wetsuit, review critical safety protocols, and make absolutely sure she understood the hand signals for abort immediately. "We're going down 50 feet. The pressure will feel uncomfortable but manageable. Equalize every 10 feet. Don't hold your breath. If you feel panic, squeeze my hand, and we surface immediately. Understand?" Maya nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. Owen checked her equipment one final time. Then they rolled backward into water that felt like entering another world entirely. The descent happened in stages, pausing every 3 meters, while Maya's ears adjusted to pressure that felt like her head was being squeezed in a vice. Owen watched her constantly, his hand always within reach, ready to abort if she showed signs of panic or distress. At 15 meters, they reached the platform's submerged deck. Owen's portable lights revealed a ghostly industrial landscape, metal grating covered in marine growth, equipment encrusted with barnacles, and shadows that seemed to move with the gentle surge of current. They followed the deck to a hatch that had been sealed with 3 separate locking mechanisms. 2 of the locks lay cut and discarded on the deck. The third hung open, its mechanism defeated by Owen's plasma cutter. He pulled the hatch up, revealing a vertical shaft descending another 6 meters into darkness. Owen gave Maya the hand signal for "follow me" and descended into the shaft with his lights leading the way. Maya followed, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat, her breathing deliberately controlled, despite every instinct screaming to panic. The shaft opened into the auxiliary hold. Maya's first thought was that Owen's estimates had been conservative. The space was larger than 4 by 6 meters, more like 5 by 8, with overhead clearance of nearly 4 meters. And filling that space, stacked in precise rows with military efficiency, were gold bars. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Each one stamped with markings Maya couldn't quite read in the underwater light, but unmistakably gold. The bars had been wrapped in protective material that had deteriorated over 20 years of submersion, but the gold itself remained perfect, immune to corrosion, immune to time, just sitting there in organized rows, like someone had planned to return for them, but never had. Owen swam to the nearest stack and pointed to one of the bars. Maya moved closer, her hands shaking as she touched metal that represented more wealth than she'd ever imagined possessing. The markings became clearer under direct light. Credit Suisse, 400 ounces, .9999 fine gold. Standard 400-ounce bars, worth approximately $800,000 each at current prices, and there were hundreds of them. Maya's brain tried to calculate the total value and failed. Too many bars, too much gold, too much wealth to comprehend in any meaningful way. Owen was making slow circles around the hold, filming everything with his waterproof camera, documenting the arrangement, the quantity, the condition. After 10 minutes, he signaled to surface. The ascent felt eternal. Maya's mind, still processing what she'd seen, what it meant, what came next. They broke the surface together, Owen helping her back into the boat before removing his own gear. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, so Owen pulled out his waterproof notepad and started calculating. I counted 473 bars in clear sight. There are probably more in the stacks I couldn't see around. Conservative estimate, 500 bars minimum. At $800,000 per bar, you're looking at $400 million. If there are more in the back stacks, and I think there are, we're approaching 500 million. Maya's vision blurred. She wasn't sure if she was crying or if it was just seawater running down her face from her hair. $500 million in a hold she owned, on a platform she'd bought for $650, while people laughed and called her crazy. What do we do now? Owen's expression was grim despite the magnitude of their discovery. Now we secure it before someone takes it from us. That hold has been sealed for 20 years, but we just opened it. Anyone monitoring this platform, and someone clearly is, will know we went down tonight. They'll know we had cutting equipment. They'll know what we found. How could they know? Satellites, drones, paid informants at the marina. Ms. Torres, we're talking about $500 million in gold that someone's been trying to access for 2 decades. The moment we leave this location, the clock starts ticking on how long before they move against you. Maya looked at the platform, at the open hatch 60 feet below the surface, at the fortune sitting in a hold that anyone with diving equipment could now access. Can we seal it again? Not permanently. Not without equipment we don't have. But I can make it harder to access. Buy us maybe 48 hours. In that time, you need to get lawyers, you need to file legal claims, you need to go public with this discovery. Before someone disappears, you and pretends none of it exists. The casual way he said, disappears you, made Maya's blood run cold. You think they'd actually, for $500 million? Ms. Torres, people have killed for $500. This is 1,000 times that. You need protection, you need legal documentation, and you need to move fast. They spent the next hour rigging temporary security measures. Owen welded the hatch partially closed, enough that it would require significant effort to reopen, and installed a motion sensor that would alert Maya's phone if anyone approached the platform. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. The journey back to the marina happened in tense silence, the both of them scanning the horizon for boats that might be following, for any sign that their discovery hadn't gone unnoticed. They reached the dock without incident, but as Maya helped Owen unload equipment, she noticed a sedan parked in the shadows beyond the marina lights, the same sedan she'd seen outside her apartment that morning. We're being watched, she said quietly. Owen followed her gaze. Then we move fast. Go home, pack essentials, get your daughter, and find somewhere safe to stay tonight. Not your apartment, somewhere they won't immediately look. I'll start making calls to the lawyers you mentioned. We document everything, file all necessary claims tomorrow morning, and we go public tomorrow afternoon. Why public? Because once this hits the news, killing you becomes much more complicated. Right now, you're just a struggling single mother who bought a worthless platform. You disappear, no one looks too hard. But if CNN's running stories about the woman who found $500 million in gold, you become too visible to make vanish quietly. Maya drove home with her rearview mirror full of headlights that might have been following her or might have been paranoia. At the apartment, Gloria took one look at her face and started packing without questions. "It's real, isn't it?" her mother said, stuffing Lily's clothes into a backpack. "It's real, and it's dangerous, and we need to leave right now." "Where are we going?" Maya pulled out her phone and called the one person she knew who had resources and reason to help. "Jennifer, it's Maya. I need a huge favor. Can we stay with you tonight? All three of us?" "It's complicated and urgent." Jennifer lived in Corpus Christi in a house with actual guest rooms and security systems and neighbors who would notice if something suspicious happened. She answered the door at 10:30 with wine already open and questions clearly bubbling beneath forced calm. After Lily was asleep in the guest room and Gloria had been settled with explanations that satisfied without revealing every detail, Maya sat in Jennifer's kitchen and told her everything. The platform, the dive, the gold, the surveillance, the very real possibility that she'd just painted a target on her back, worth $500 million. Jennifer listened without interrupting, her engineer's brain processing information with the same analytical precision Maya remembered from their years working together. When Maya finished, Jennifer poured more wine and spoke carefully. "You need 3 things immediately: a lawyer who specializes in maritime salvage, a security company that can provide physical protection, and a media strategy that makes you too public to harm quietly. I know people who can help with all 3. But Maya, you need to understand something. Your life just changed irrevocably. Even if you do everything right, even if you keep the gold, you'll never be anonymous again. You'll never be just another single mother struggling to make ends meet. Everything from this point forward will be complicated by the fact that you are now worth, potentially, $500 million. I know. Do you? Because I've worked with people who had sudden wealth, and it destroyed them. Family comes out of nowhere demanding money. Friends reveal themselves as enemies. Every decision you make gets questioned and analyzed. Privacy becomes impossible. Maya thought about Lily asleep in the next room, about the studio apartment they'd been living in, about the electric bill she couldn't pay, and the car that burned oil, and the constant stress of never having enough. It can't be worse than what we've been living through. It's different. Not necessarily better or worse, just different. But Maya, if you're serious about keeping this gold, about claiming it legally and building a life from it, then we start tomorrow. I'll make calls tonight, set up meetings, begin the process of transforming you from struggling single mother into wealthy salvage operator who just made the find of the century. That sounds insane when you say it like that. It is insane, but apparently it's also true. Maya slept fitfully, unstartled awake by every sound, checking her phone constantly for alerts from Owen's motion sensors. At 3 a.m., one came through, movement detected at the platform. She watched through the security camera as a boat approached, saw figures in diving gear descending into the water, watched them spend 40 minutes trying to access the hold before Owen's welding work apparently convinced them it would require more equipment than they'd brought. They left without taking anything, but the message was clear. Someone knew what was down there, and they were preparing for more serious attempts at access. At 7 a.m., Maya's phone rang. Attorney Franklin Pierce, calling from an unknown number. His voice had lost its professional polish and acquired an edge of desperation. "Ms. Torres, my clients are prepared to offer $5 million for the platform, and immediate transfer of all salvage rights. Cash payment. No questions asked. Closing today. $5 million. Yesterday that would have been unimaginable wealth. Today it was an insult. Less than 1% of what the gold was worth, which meant Pierce's clients knew exactly what was down there and were hoping Maya was either too stupid or too scared to claim full value. Tell your clients the platform isn't for sale. Not for $5 million, not for $50 million. I own it legally, and I'm exercising my salvage rights to whatever's inside it. Ms. Torres, be realistic. You're a single mother with no resources going up against people who have the money and connections to make your life very difficult. $5 million is more than you'll ever see otherwise. Take it and move on. Mr. Pierce, when you speak to your clients, tell them I found the gold. Tell them I've documented it. Tell them I'm filing legal claims this morning and going public this afternoon. And tell them that if anything happens to me or my daughter, I've arranged for all evidence to be released to federal authorities and every news outlet in Texas. She hung up before he could respond, her hands shaking, but her resolve solid. Jennifer was already up, coffee made, laptop open, her own phone showing a list of calls she'd made while Maya slept. I've got meetings scheduled with 3 maritime salvage attorneys. The first one's at 9 a.m. I also called a security company I worked with on a previous project. 2 guards will be here by 8 to provide protection until we've got long-term arrangements in place. And I reached out to a journalist friend at the Houston Chronicle who's interested in the story, pending legal clearance. Jennifer, I can't thank you enough. Save it. You do the same for me. Besides, 20 years from now when you're living in a mansion and I'm still working corporate engineering, I'm going to remember that I helped you when you needed it most, and you're going to remember too. The attorney meetings happened in rapid succession. The first lawyer, a man in his 60s who'd handled oil rig claims for 40 years, listened to Maya's story and immediately wanted 15% of the gross recovery. The second attorney, younger and hungrier, offered to work for a flat fee plus 5%. But it was the third meeting that crystallized everything. Rebecca Chen walked into Jennifer's living room at 1 p.m., wearing a suit that cost more than Maya's truck and carrying a reputation for winning salvage cases that everyone said were unwinnable. She listened to Maya's explanation without interrupting, reviewed the underwater photographs Owen had taken, studied the platform ownership documents, and finally spoke. Ms. Torres, this is simultaneously the strongest and weakest salvage claim I've ever seen. Strong because you legally own the platform and everything attached to it. Weak because the gold was almost certainly stored by clients who had ownership agreements with Coastal Resources International, and those clients, or their heirs, will claim the assets belong to them, not to you. But CRI went bankrupt. The platform was sold through legal channels. I bought it fair and square. You bought the platform. The question is whether you bought the contents. That's what makes this complicated. Here's what we do. We file maritime salvage claims this afternoon, establishing your right to recover anything found inside your property. We simultaneously file with federal court, declaring the gold as found assets, subject to competing ownership claims. We invite any parties with legitimate ownership claims to come forward through proper legal channels. And we make it clear that you're willing to negotiate reasonable settlements with verified claimants, but will defend your primary salvage rights aggressively. How long does that process take? Months? Maybe years. But Ms. Torres, here's the key. While the courts sort out ownership, the gold stays in your possession under federal protection. You become the legal custodian. And there's precedent for salvage operators receiving significant percentage of recovered assets, even when ownership gets split among multiple claimants. You might not keep $500 million, but you could easily end up with $100 million or more. Maya tried to process that number. $100 million. It was less than the full value, but still more than she could spend in 10 lifetimes. Still enough to transform everything. What's your fee? 10% of your net recovery, payable only when funds are disbursed. If you get nothing, I get nothing. And Ms. Torres, I need to be very clear about something. Filing these claims today means you're declaring war on people who've been trying to keep this gold hidden for 20 years. They will fight back. They will threaten you, sue you, try to discredit you. And you need to be prepared for that fight. I spent 3 years being told I was crazy, unstable, making poor decisions. I've been living in a studio apartment with my 7-year-old daughter, counting pennies to buy groceries. I'm already at rock bottom. They can't push me any lower. But now I've got something worth fighting for. So yes, Ms. Chen, file the claims. Rebecca smiled, a sharp expression that suggested she enjoyed fighting impossible battles. Then let's give them a war they won't forget. The afternoon dissolved into paperwork. Maritime salvage claims filed with Federal Admiralty Court, ownership declarations, requests for federal security of recovered assets. Each document signed, notarized, filed officially, but creating a paper trail that established Maya Torres as the rightful salvage operator of the Marisol Platform and everything inside it. At 4 p.m., Rebecca's phone rang. She listened for 30 seconds, her expression darkening, then put the call on speaker. Ms. Chen, this is Marcus Wade, representing the Coastal Heritage Foundation. We've just been made aware of your client's claims regarding the Marisol Platform. The foundation believes those claims are fraudulent and has filed an emergency motion to freeze all salvage operations pending proper investigation. Rebecca's response was ice. The Coastal Heritage Foundation has no standing. Your organization didn't exist when the platform was decommissioned. You have no documented ownership claims. And you're clearly a shell company created to interfere with legitimate salvage operations. We have documentation proving the gold was held in trust for multiple parties, whose interests we now represent. Your client is attempting to steal assets that don't belong to her. Then present your documentation to federal court through proper channels. Until you do, Ms. Torres's salvage claims stand. Wade's voice dropped to barely controlled anger. Ms. Chen, your client is making a serious mistake. There are people invested in this situation who won't accept being robbed by an opportunistic scavenger. I strongly suggest she reconsider before this gets ugly. Was that a threat, Mr. Wade? Because I'm recording this call and would be happy to submit it as evidence of intimidation. The line went dead. Maya's hands shook as she lowered her coffee mug. He just threatened us, directly. He did, which was stupid. Now we have evidence of criminal intimidation to add to our court filings. Ms. Torres, this is actually good news. They're panicking. They thought the gold would stay hidden forever. And now it's been discovered by someone who's not backing down. Panic leads to mistakes. But panic also leads to violence, Maya thought. She remembered the sedan following her, the midnight attempt to access the platform, the attorney offering escalating amounts of money. These weren't people who would accept losing $500 million without fighting back. Jennifer's doorbell rang at 6 p.m. Gloria answered it, then called out with confusion in her voice. Maya, there's a man here to see you. Na says he's an old friend. Maya came to the door and froze. Michael's face looked back at her, or rather, Michael's brother Daniel, wearing the same features with 5 years more aging, the same eyes that Lily had inherited, the same jawline that Maya had traced with her fingers 1,000 times before the accident took everything away. Maya, I heard you hit the jackpot. Thought maybe we should talk about Lily's inheritance. Maya stepped between Daniel and the doorway, blocking his view of the interior, where Lily was presumably still napping in the guest room. 3 years. 3 years since Michael's funeral, where Daniel had stood beside her, promising to help with anything she needed, then disappeared completely when it became clear helping meant actual sacrifice rather than empty platitudes. Daniel, what are you doing here? I said, I heard about the platform, the gold. Maya, that's Lily's inheritance from her father. Michael would have wanted her to have financial security. The audacity of it stole Maya's breath for a moment. Jennifer appeared behind her, her presence solid and supporting. Rebecca Chen materialized from the kitchen, where she'd been drafting additional court filings, her attorney instincts recognizing threat when it arrived unannounced. "Mr. Torres, I presume." "I'm Rebecca Chen, Miss Torres's legal counsel. Any claims regarding your niece's inheritance should be directed through proper legal channels, not through ambush visits to private residences." Daniel's smile was Michael's smile, warm and charming, the expression that had made Maya fall in love years ago before she understood that charm without substance was just manipulation. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just think we should discuss what's fair for Lily. $500 million is a lot of money. Maya, you are struggling. Everyone knows that. Wouldn't it be better if Lily's inheritance was managed by family who has experience with wealth?" "You mean by you?" Maya kept her voice level despite the rage building in her chest. "The brother who disappeared when Michael died, who never sent birthday cards, never called to check on Lily, never offered to help when we were living in a studio apartment with no money for groceries. But now that there's gold, suddenly you're concerned about family. I was giving you space to grieve. You were avoiding responsibility. Don't pretend this is about Lily's well-being. This is about you wanting access to money you didn't earn, didn't find, and have no legal claim to." Daniel's expression hardened, the charm evaporating. "I'm Lily's uncle, her closest male relative. If this goes to court, custody could become an issue. I've got a stable home, a wife, financial resources. You've got a documented history of mental health problems, instability, questionable decision-making. A judge might decide Lily would be better off with family who can actually provide for her." The threat landed like a physical blow. Maya's vision narrowed, her hands curling into fists. Before she could respond, Rebecca stepped forward, her voice carrying the cold precision of someone who'd destroyed bigger threats than Daniel Torres. "Mr. Torres, I'd advise you very carefully about your next words. What you just said constitutes attempted extortion, threatening to pursue custody in order to gain financial benefit. That's a crime in Texas, and I'm recording this conversation. Additionally, Ms. Torres's salvage of the Marisol Platform demonstrates exactly the kind of competence, determination, and sound judgment that any custody court would find admirable. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're not going to contact Ms. Torres or Lily again without going through proper legal channels. And if you pursue any custody claim, we will file counter motions, including this recording as evidence of your actual motivations." Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, then tried one more angle. "Maya, be reasonable. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I just want to make sure Lily's protected. Get out." Maya's voice came out flat and cold. "Get out of this house. Get out of our lives. And don't come back unless you're actually interested in being Lily's uncle instead of a vulture circling wealth you had nothing to do with creating." He left, but not before turning at the door with a parting shot. "You're making enemies, Maya. People a lot more dangerous than me. Don't be surprised when this all falls apart." After the door closed, Maya sagged against the wall, adrenaline draining away and leaving exhaustion in its wake. Gloria emerged from the guest room, where she'd apparently been keeping Lily occupied and unaware of the confrontation. "He always was his father's son," Gloria said quietly. "Michael's father, Lily's grandfather, was the same way. As sweet as honey until money was involved, then suddenly you couldn't trust a word. Michael spent his whole life trying to be different, trying to prove that charm and kindness could coexist. I think he managed it, mostly." "He did," Maya whispered. "Michael was good. His brother's just an opportunistic bastard." "Language," Gloria said automatically, then softened. But yes, essentially. Rebecca was already typing on her laptop. I'm filing a restraining order. Daniel Torres just committed extortion on camera. Even if the prosecutor doesn't pursue charges, the recording gives us leverage if he tries anything else. But Ms. Torres, he raised a valid point. Not about custody, but about enemies. Filing salvage claims this afternoon meant you publicly declared your intention to keep the gold. Everyone who thought they had a claim to it now knows you're standing in their way. How many people are we talking about? Impossible to say. CRI stored gold for multiple clients before bankruptcy. Some of those clients may be dead, their claims passed to heirs who don't even know this gold exists. But some are alive, and some have probably been waiting 20 years for a chance to recover their assets. When our filings hit the federal database, which they did at 4 p.m., every law firm with clients who might have claims got notified. By tomorrow morning, you'll be facing multiple competing salvage claims, ownership challenges, and probably criminal investigations into whether you knew about the gold before purchasing the platform. I didn't. I know. But proving that gets complicated. Your engineering background, so your analysis of the deliberate sinking, the timing of your purchase, prosecutors love patterns that suggest premeditated fraud. We'll deal with it. But Maya, the next few months are going to be brutal. You need to prepare yourself, and prepare Lily. As if summoned by her name, Lily appeared in the doorway, her hair mussed from sleeping. Mr. Whiskers clutched under one arm. Mama? Why was Uncle Daniel here? I heard yelling. Maya pulled her daughter close, breathing in the scent of the strawberry shampoo they'd used for her bath the night before. Uncle Daniel heard we found something valuable and wanted to talk about it. But everything's okay. Did we really find treasure? We did, baby. A lot of treasure. Enough to change our whole lives. Lily processed this with 7-year-old seriousness. And does that mean I get my pool? Despite everything, the threats, the legal battles brewing, the danger circling, Maya laughed. Yes, Lily, you get your pool, and your yard and your dog and a bathroom door that closes properly. All of it. That night, Maya barely slept. She lay in Jennifer's guest room, staring at the ceiling, listening to Lily breathe beside her. At 2 a.m., her phone buzzed with an alert from Owen's motion sensors. She pulled up the camera feed and watched 3 boats converge on the platform. This time, they came prepared. Plasma cutters, professional diving equipment, what looked like underwater winches for removing heavy objects. Maya called Rebecca immediately. They're trying to salvage the gold right now. Multiple boats, professional equipment. What do I do? You call Coast Guard and report illegal salvage operations on your property. Then you send me the video footage. They're committing multiple federal crimes: trespassing, salvage theft, destruction of property. Every second they're down there, they're building our case. The Coast Guard arrived within 40 minutes, but by then, the salvage boats had fled. Rebecca filed emergency motions at dawn, requesting immediate federal protection of the platform and its contents. By 8 a.m., a U.S. Marshal had been assigned to secure the site. By noon, a federal salvage team was preparing to document and recover the gold under court supervision. Maya stood on the dock with Lily, watching federal boats surround her platform. News helicopters circled overhead. Rebecca's media strategy had worked. The story had broken at 7 a.m. across every major outlet in Texas. Single mother finds $500 million in gold on abandoned platform. Competed with treasure discovery sparks, legal battle over historic salvage. The cameras had found her within an hour. Maya gave one statement, carefully prepared by Rebecca, explaining that she'd purchased the platform legally, discovered the gold through proper salvage operations, and would defend her claims through appropriate legal channels. She didn't mention the threats, the midnight break-in attempts, or Daniel's attempted extortion. Those were for the courts. What she couldn't avoid mentioning was the mockery she'd endured. A reporter from the Corpus Christi Caller-Times asked pointedly, "Ms. Torres, witnesses say people laughed when you bought this platform for $650. How does it feel to prove them wrong?" Maya looked directly into the camera, thinking about David Chen's smugness, the Chamber of Commerce woman's condescension, every person at that auction who'd treated her like a punchline. It feels like vindication. I'm an engineer. I know how to read structures, how to see patterns others miss. Everyone assumed the platform was worthless because it looked broken. But broken things sometimes hide treasure. You just have to be willing to look. The clip went viral within hours. Social media exploded with hot takes, some celebrating Maya's triumph, others questioning whether she'd somehow known about the gold beforehand, still others debating the ethics of salvage law and whether finders should be keepers. Maya ignored all of it, focusing instead on Lily, who'd become fascinated by the federal operation unfolding at the platform. "How long until they bring up the treasure, Mama?" "A few days, probably. They have to document everything, photograph each bar, create an inventory. It's complicated." "But it's ours, right? They can't take it?" Maya knelt down to Lily's level, aware that news cameras were probably capturing this moment. Let them. Let the whole world see a mother explaining complicated truths to her daughter. Some of it will be ours. Some might belong to other people who had stored their gold there and never got it back. The courts will decide who gets what. But baby, even if we only end up with part of it, it'll be enough. More than enough. Enough for the pool. Enough for 20 pools if you want them. By the third day of federal salvage operations, the official count came back. 623 gold bars, total weight approximately 25,000 kilograms, estimated value at current gold prices, $497 million. Maya had underestimated. Rebecca called with updates that came faster than Maya could process. 17 parties have filed competing ownership claims. The Justice Department has opened an investigation into CRI's original acquisition of the gold. 3 of the claimants appear to have legitimate documentation proving they stored assets with CRI before the bankruptcy. The others are opportunistic, trying to claim ownership based on circumstantial connections. What does that mean for me? It means months of litigation, but Ms. Torres, you're in the strongest position. You own the platform, you executed the salvage. You've got documented evidence of every step. The legitimate claimants will probably receive their assets back, maybe $150 million worth. The opportunistic claims will get dismissed, which leaves approximately $350 million in gold with no verified owner. Under maritime salvage law, that belongs to you as the salvage operator. $350 million. Maya's brain still couldn't process numbers that large in any meaningful way. She tried converting it to practical terms. Years of rent, cars she could buy, college funds for Lily, investments that would generate passive income. But the numbers exceeded any framework for understanding wealth she'd ever developed. Well, when would I actually see any money? Courts will probably order a percentage released to you immediately, maybe 10%. To cover legal expenses and living costs while the cases proceed. Call it $35 million within the next 3 months. The rest gets held in federal custody until all claims are resolved, which could take a year or more. But Maya, $35 million is enough to transform your life completely. We need to start planning for that reality. Planning meant financial advisors, wealth managers, accountants specializing in sudden wealth syndrome. It meant security consultants assessing threats and designing protection protocols. It meant real estate agents showing Maya properties that cost more than she'd earned in her entire life before the platform. But it also meant something simpler, driving back to Port Aransas and confronting the people who'd mocked her. The Chamber of Commerce meeting happened on Thursday afternoon. scheduled weeks ago before Maya had become the most famous salvage operator in Texas. She walked in wearing clothes Jennifer had helped her shop for, professional, expensive, the kind of outfit that announced she no longer needed anyone's charity or pity. The room fell silent when she entered. David Chen sat in the front row, his expression somewhere between embarrassment and calculation. The woman who'd called her honey and warned her about the platform's worthlessness sat 2 rows back, suddenly fascinated by her phone. Owen Reeves sat near the exit, his presence both moral support and reminder that Maya hadn't done this alone. And the chamber president, a man named Harold Finch, who'd never spoken to Maya before, stood and attempted a smile. "Ms. Torres, we're honored to have you here. Your discovery has brought significant attention to Port Aransas. We'd love to hear about your experience and perhaps discuss how the chamber can support your ongoing operations." Support, the word tasted like ash in Maya's mouth. Where was this support when she was living in a studio apartment with an eviction notice? Where was it when she walked Lily to the bus stop wearing thrift store clothes while other mothers whispered, "Mr. Finch, I appreciate the invitation, but I'm not here for support. I'm here because 3 weeks ago, I bought a platform at auction for $650. Some of you were there. You laughed. You called it a death trap, a lawsuit waiting to happen. You told me I was wasting my money, that I clearly didn't understand what I'd purchased." The room's discomfort thickened. David Chen shifted in his seat. "You were wrong. All of you. That platform held $497 million in gold. I found it because I trusted my engineering training, because I could read structural patterns everyone else dismissed, because I was willing to risk my last dollar on analysis everyone said was delusional." Maya paused, letting that sink in. "Now you want to support me? Now you're interested in my operations? Where was this interest when I needed it? When I was desperate and struggling and one bad decision from homelessness?" Harold Finch attempted recovery. "Ms. Torres, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. You saw a struggling single mother and decided I wasn't worth your time or respect. You saw someone who looked broken and assumed I had nothing valuable to offer. You were wrong about me. You were wrong about the platform. And you were wrong about what determination and knowledge can accomplish against overwhelming odds." The woman from the auction finally spoke up, her voice small. "Maya, Ms. Torres, some of us did want to help, but you seemed so determined, so confident. We thought maybe you knew something we didn't. I did know something. I knew that people who dismiss others based on appearances miss the most important details. I knew that broken things can hide treasure. And I knew that sometimes the craziest sounding decisions are actually the most rational when you understand the analysis behind them." David Chen stood, and his face flushed. "Ms. Torres, you're being unfair. Nobody could have known there was gold down there. You got lucky. Congratulations on your luck, but don't pretend this was skill." Owen Reeves laughed from the back of the room, a sharp, mocking sound that cut through the tension. "Luck?" Ms. Torres identified deliberate scuttling patterns from structural analysis. She recognized that the platform's stability was inconsistent with natural collapse. She traced ownership history back to a company known for offshore storage operations. She hired professional salvage support and executed proper documentation at every step. "That's not luck, Chen. That's competence. You wouldn't recognize it because you've built your career on following safe paths and avoiding anything that requires actual risk analysis." The meeting dissolved after that, people filing out in uncomfortable silence, but not everyone left. 3 people approached Maya afterward, a young couple who'd been sitting in the back, and Harold Finch, who looked genuinely chastened. "Ms. Torres," the woman said, "my name is Emily Rodriguez. My husband Marcus and I run a marine conservation nonprofit. We've been trying to get funding for habitat restoration around abandoned platforms. Your discovery, your story, it's bringing attention to offshore structures in ways we never could. Would you consider partnering with us? Donating some of your salvage proceeds to environmental work? Maya studied them, seeing genuine passion rather than opportunism. I'm not making financial commitments until the legal situation resolves, but once I know what I'm actually keeping, yes, I'd be interested in discussing conservation partnerships. Platforms like the Marisol shouldn't just be forgotten. If they can't be salvaged profitably, they should serve environmental purposes. Harold Finch waited until the Rodriguezes left before approaching, his expression humble in a way that suggested genuine remorse. Ms. Torres, I owe you an apology, not just for dismissing your purchase, but for failing to see what was obvious in hindsight. You're exactly the kind of entrepreneur and problem solver this community needs. Would you consider serving on the Chamber's board? We need people who think differently, who see opportunities others miss. Mr. Finch, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested in joining organizations that value me only after I've proven myself spectacularly. Maybe in a few years, after I've seen whether this community can treat struggling people with respect, even when they haven't found treasure. She left the meeting with Owen, both of them silent until they reached the parking lot. Then Owen spoke, his voice carrying respect Maya hadn't heard before. You handled that well. Could have been vindictive, could have really destroyed some of those people. You showed restraint. Destroying them wouldn't change anything. They are who they are. But maybe some of them learned something today about assumptions and value. And the ones who didn't learn? They'll spend the rest of their lives telling people they knew I'd find treasure all along. That's its own kind of punishment. The federal salvage operation concluded after 2 weeks. Maya stood on Owen's boat, watching the last gold bars being lifted from the Marisol's auxiliary hold in sealed containers marked with evidence tags and federal custody numbers. Each bar represented wealth beyond her imagining, but more than that, each one represented vindication. She'd been right. The platform had hidden treasure. The deliberate sinking had been real. Her engineering analysis had been sound. Every instinct that had driven her to spend $650 on a structure everyone said was worthless had been validated. Rebecca called that evening with news that made Maya's hands shake. The judge approved emergency release of funds. $10 million will be deposited into a secured account in your name tomorrow morning. That's to cover legal fees, living expenses, and initial setup costs, while the larger claims get resolved. Maya, on tomorrow morning you're going to wake up a millionaire. 10 million. Not the full amount, not even close, but more money than Maya had ever imagined having. Enough to transform everything. What do I do with it? First, you pay taxes. Set aside 35% immediately. Then you pay me, pay Owen his 20% of the initial recovery, pay your security consultants, pay Jennifer back for her hospitality. After that, you start building your new life. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She sat in Jennifer's guest room with her laptop, researching houses in Port Aransas. Not mansions, not estates, just homes. Real homes with yards and pools and bathrooms where doors closed properly. She found one by midnight, a 4-bedroom house 3 blocks from the beach, with a fenced yard perfect for a dog and a pool that wasn't Olympic-sized, but was absolutely, perfectly enough for one little girl who'd never had her own before. The house cost $650,000, 10,000 times what she'd spent on the platform, but Maya could afford it now. She sent the listing to her real estate agent with a message. I want to make an offer. Full asking price, cash, close as soon as possible. The response came back within minutes. I'll draft the papers tonight. You can sign tomorrow. Welcome home, Ms. Torres. Maya woke Lily gently, pulling her daughter into her arms. "Baby, wake up. I need to show you something." Lily stirred, rubbing her eyes. "Is it morning?" "No, but I found our house, the one with the pool and the yard. Do you want to see pictures?" They sat together in the darkness, looking at photos of the house that would be theirs in 30 days. Lily traced the pool with her finger, already imagining herself swimming. "Can we get a dog right away?" "As soon as we move in." "A big dog?" "Whatever kind you want, baby." Lily was quiet for a moment, then asked the question that had probably been building for weeks. "Mama, why did it take so long for good things to happen? Why did Daddy have to die, and we had to be sad and poor, and people were mean?" Maya didn't have an answer that would satisfy a 7-year-old's need for fairness and justice. She barely had an answer that satisfied herself. Sometimes life is hard for a long time before it gets better. Sometimes you have to go through really difficult things before you find the treasure. "But Lily, I don't think Daddy dying was some kind of lesson or test. Hun, it was just terrible and sad and unfair. What happened after? Us surviving. Us figuring things out. Us finding the platform. That was us refusing to stay broken. That was us choosing to keep looking for treasure, even when everyone said we were crazy. Do you think Daddy knows we found treasure? I think if he's anywhere watching, he's proud of you. Proud of how brave you've been, how patient, how kind, even when things were hard. And I think he'd be happy we found a way to build a good life." The closing on the house happened 3 weeks later. Maya signed papers with Lily beside her, both of them giddy with the reality of ownership. The keys were handed over with ceremony that felt absurd, given how many houses the real estate agent had sold. But Maya understood. This wasn't just a house. This was the physical manifestation of transformation, from desperate to stable, from mocked to vindicated, from broken to whole. They moved in with minimal furniture, beds, a couch, kitchen essentials. Maya could afford more, could have furnished the entire place with expensive pieces, but she wanted to take it slowly, wanted to make deliberate choices rather than rushing to fill space with things that held no meaning. The pool was what mattered. On their first day in the new house, Maya and Lily stood at its edge, a simple rectangular pool with blue tiles and crystal clear water that caught sunlight and threw it back in sparkles that hurt to look at directly. "Can we swim right now?" "We don't have swimsuits yet." "Can we swim in our clothes?" Maya laughed, the kind of laugh that came from joy rather than hysteria or irony. "Yes, baby, we can swim in our clothes." They jumped in together, fully dressed, the water cool and perfect. Lily swam like she'd been doing it all her life, like she'd just been waiting for permission and opportunity. Maya floated on her back, staring at sky that looked impossibly blue, feeling the water hold her weight, thinking about the journey that had led here. $650, her last dollar, spent on a platform everyone said was worthless. $497 million in gold, hidden in a hold everyone said was empty. The distance between those two numbers was everything. Courage, analysis, determination, risk, fear, hope, and the stubborn refusal to let other people's limitations define her possibilities. Gloria arrived that afternoon with more boxes of their belongings, plus food she'd cooked because she still couldn't quite believe Maya didn't need her help anymore. She stood in the kitchen, the real kitchen with modern appliances and counter space, and cried, "Maya, I'm so proud of you. Your father he'd be amazed. I'm not like Dad. Dad chased dreams without analysis. I chased evidence. But you had his courage, his willingness to risk everything when everyone said you were wrong. That's what he gave you. Not good judgment about when to take risks, but the ability to take them at all." Jennifer visited with champagne, and the news that Maya's story had been optioned by a production company interested in making a movie. "They're offering $2 million for the rights. You don't have to accept. But Maya, think about it. Your story inspiring other people who feel stuck, who feel like they're out of options, who need to see that desperate circumstances don't have to be permanent. What would I even do with $2 million more? Whatever you want. That's the point. You get to choose now. No more counting pennies. No more checking account balances before buying groceries. You won the impossible lottery, and now you get to decide what winning means." Owen came by that evening with a check for his 20% of the initial recovery, $2 million that he'd earned by trusting Maya's analysis and executing professional salvage operations when everyone else said the platform held nothing. He stood in her living room, looking uncomfortable in his wealth. "I'm buying a boat, 40-footer, equipped for deep salvage, starting my own operation. Figure if you found $500 million on one platform, there might be others worth investigating. There probably are. Just remember, most of them will be empty. The Marisol was extraordinary. But now I know what extraordinary looks like. That's worth something." The legal proceedings continued for months. Competing claims got sorted. Legitimate owners received their gold back. Opportunistic claims got dismissed. The final tally came back 18 months after Maya's initial discovery. $293 million awarded to Maya Torres as salvage operator. After all, verified ownership claims had been satisfied. $293 million. Maya had proven everyone wrong beyond any possible argument. She'd transformed $650 into generational wealth through engineering analysis, strategic risk-taking, and stubborn refusal to accept other people's limitations as her own. The pool company arrived on a Tuesday morning to install the chemical system that would keep the water perfectly balanced year-round. The fence company finished the yard on Wednesday, creating a secure space for the dog Lily had named Thunder, a golden retriever puppy who'd already claimed the couch as his personal territory. On Saturday, Maya hosted a small gathering. Owen, Jennifer, Rebecca, Gloria, and Lily's teacher from the new private school she'd started attending in January. They sat by the pool eating tacos from a food truck Maya had hired because cooking for guests still felt overwhelming, and talked about everything except the gold. Jennifer raised her margarita glass to Maya, the woman who taught us all that broken things can hide treasure. "To Maya," the others echoed. Maya looked around at the people who'd helped her, believed in her, stood with her when she had nothing to offer except hope and analysis. She thought about the people who hadn't: Daniel with his custody threats, David Chen with his mockery, Franklin Pierce with his escalating offers to buy her out. She'd sent Daniel a trust fund document last week, $5 million for Lily, to be distributed when she turned 25, with Daniel having zero access or control. It was more than he deserved, but Lily deserved to know her mother took the high road, even when family proved unworthy. David Chen had called last month, asking if Maya needed a marine consultant for her next venture. She'd politely declined. Our Franklin Pierce's clients, whoever they actually were, had disappeared completely after the federal investigation revealed they were a shell company with connections to CRI's original bankruptcy fraud. But the real vindication wasn't about those people. It was about this: sitting by a pool in a house she owned, with her daughter swimming happily, with friends who'd stood by her, with financial security that meant Lily would never know what it felt like to count pennies for groceries, or wear thrift store clothes, or hear her mother cry at night from stress and fear. That evening, after everyone had left, and Lily was asleep in her new bedroom with Thunder snoring at the foot of her bed, Maya walked down to the small office she'd set up in the fourth bedroom. She pulled out the auction receipt from 18 months ago, the paper that declared her the owner of the Marisol Platform for $650. She framed it and hung it on the wall, a reminder of where they'd started and how far they'd come. Below the receipt, she hung a second frame containing a quote she'd found while researching offshore engineering history. "The weight doesn't get lighter, you get stronger." Maya didn't know who'd said it originally, but it felt true. The years of struggle after Michael's death hadn't gotten easier. She'd just gotten stronger. Strong enough to risk her last dollar on a platform everyone said was worthless. Strong enough to trust her engineering analysis over popular opinion. Strong enough to stand firm when threatened, to fight when challenged, and to protect her daughter through every difficulty. She was still standing, still fighting, still building. And now she had the resources to build something that would last, not just for herself and Lily, but for other people who found themselves desperate and dismissed and told their dreams were delusions. The Haven House Foundation launched 6 months later, a nonprofit providing housing and support for single parents, transitioning from poverty to stability. Maya funded it with $30 million from her salvage proceeds and hired Emily Rodriguez to run it because the woman understood conservation, restoration, and the value of seeing potential in abandoned structures. On the day Haven House opened its doors, Maya stood in the lobby with Lily beside her, and both of them watching 5 families move into apartments that would be theirs rent-free for a year while they built stability. A reporter from the Houston Chronicle approached. "Ms. Torres, why housing? You could have done anything with your wealth, invested in tech, started a business, lived a life of luxury. Why focus on helping other people?" Maya looked at Lily, at the families carrying boxes through doors, at the building she'd purchased and renovated with money from a platform everyone said was worthless. "Because I remember what it felt like to have nothing, to be one bad decision from homelessness, to know your daughter deserves better, but not know how to provide it. I remember what it felt like when people dismissed me, mocked me, treated me like I was broken beyond repair. I don't want anyone else to feel that way. Oh, and if my story, buying a platform for $650 and finding $500 million in gold, if that story can give someone hope that their circumstances aren't permanent, then everything we went through was worth it." "Do you think you were lucky?" Maya smiled. "I think I was smart. I think I was brave. I think I refused to let other people's limitations become my own. Was there luck involved? Sure. But luck favors people who look for opportunity in places everyone else dismisses. I looked at a broken platform and saw possibility. That's not luck. That's vision." The article ran with the headline, "From $650 to $293 million. The engineer who trusted her instincts when everyone else laughed." It was syndicated nationally, shared millions of times, and became one of those stories people told each other when they needed inspiration to take risks that seemed crazy, to trust analysis over popular opinion, to believe that broken things could hide treasure. 3 years after Maya bought the platform, she stood on the beach at Port Aransas with Lily, now 10 years old, tall and confident, no longer the frightened 7-year-old who'd clutched Mr. Whiskers and asked if the broken boat could be fixed. The Marisol still stood offshore, its rust-covered skeleton now stabilized and serving as an artificial reef supporting marine life that attracted divers and researchers. Maya had donated it to the Conservation Foundation rather than having it demolished, turning a structure that had hidden treasure into something that created value in a different way. "Mama, do you ever miss when things were hard? When we had to count money and live in the tiny apartment?" Maya pulled Lily close. "I don't miss the hardship, but I'm grateful for what it taught us. We learned we were stronger than we thought. We learned that circumstances don't define possibilities. We learned that sometimes the craziest sounding decisions are actually the most rational when you understand the analysis behind them. Do you think you'll ever find more treasure?" "I found all the treasure I needed, baby. I found proof that I wasn't broken. I found evidence that trusting myself was more valuable than accepting other people's limitations. And I found a way to build a life where you get to have pools and dogs and bathroom doors that close properly. Lily laughed at that. The bathroom door had become their running joke, on their shorthand for the simple pleasures that poverty had denied and wealth had provided. They walked back to the house as sunset painted the gulf in shades of amber and gold, as thunder ran ahead barking at waves, as Gloria called from the porch announcing dinner was ready. Maya thought about the journey, from mockery to vindication, from desperate to secure, from the woman who bought a platform for her last dollar to the woman who used the treasure she found to build something that would help others. The Marisol had held $500 million in gold, but the real treasure had been proving that broken things could be fixed, that dismissed people could be vindicated, that $650 and stubborn determination could transform into generational wealth and lasting impact. Maya Torres had bought a condemned platform while people laughed. She'd found $500 million in gold, while people said she was delusional. She'd built a foundation to help others, while people who'd mocked her now called asking for donations. And through it all, she'd taught her daughter the most valuable lesson, that sometimes the treasure you're seeking isn't just gold. Sometimes it's proof that you were right to believe in yourself when everyone else said you were wrong. They'd found that treasure, and they were never letting it go. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.